Hello, everyone out there in the podcast land. Welcome to the Front Row Network. Yes, I actually called it Network. Jeremy, I'm trying. And welcome to episode 17 of Discovering Star Trek. No, there is no Star Trek Discovery to talk about, but we have one sentence that was uttered today in Las Vegas that I just felt we had to do a show about, and that is Jean-Luc Picard is back. So we're going to spend some time talking about not only Discovery Season 2, which is still like a year away, but also the brand new Star Trek series that was announced kinda today. I'm Scott, and with me, as always, is...
Mike.
Hey, we almost did that right. That's good. Congratulations. So, obviously, the big news of the day is at Star Trek Las Vegas, the big convention in Vegas every year. There was actually a William Shatner panel, and everyone was told in the room, don't leave when William's done because something else is going to be announced. Shatner left because Shatner wants nothing to do with this franchise except for making money off autographs. His words. And Mike's favorite person in the whole wide world came out, Alex Kurtzman. He's still better than Mark Berman.
Yes.
Remains to be seen. I don't know. That was closer to you guys than it is to me. So
Berman's first name. Rick Berman. That was close. But he came out and said that they were going to be confirming that there are two new additions to CBS All Access coming. The first is what are called short treks, which are basically going to be mini episodes, mostly around Discovery. And in fact, they said a couple of them will be Harry Mudd, so Mike's going to love those, based on our review of that episode. But then the next one is going to be Picard series, which was announced by Patrick Stewart. But we're going to talk about that second. First thing we're going to do is talk about the trailer that was released at Comic-Con a few weeks ago for Star Trek Discovery Season 2. So let's do first impressions of that first, and we'll go to Mike first on your first impressions. That you said you haven't seen the trailer in over a month, so it's really a vague impression, so go for it.
At this point, I'll tell you the thing that stuck with me from a month ago was the same thing that stuck out to me the day that I watched it, and that is, gee, I wonder if they're going to fly starfighters in this one.
It's not canon. They're carrier starships.
I know. They just looked stupid, and they really hit you over the head with it in that trailer. It's the same thing that happened with Discovery, though. I'm 1,000% sure that everything we saw in that trailer is from the first 2 episodes of Season 2.
I can guarantee you it's at least at the most from the first 6, because they had only filmed 6 episodes when Comic-Con rolled around.
I mean, if you do, I watched it a couple of times that night, and I mean, you can kind of see the loose time frame of it all. I mean, it's got to be a just like I said, the first couple episodes. It'll probably start with a 2-parter or something like the first one did. But yeah, I it was very thrilling. That was my impression.
Mike, what about you?
So I actually really liked the trailer, and I think it shows a different tone. I think and what's going to be interesting here, I'm gonna put a caveat on that, and that's we know they fired the writers' room somewhere after some of this took place.
Episode 6.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So who knows what we could be seeing in the back half of this. But I overall really liked the trailer. I think it set a really different tone. There's some things for me that I think they're going to have to answer within it. You know, number one for me being, why does Pike need Discovery? Mm-hmm. You know, the one asset that it has, which is its, super stupid mushroom drive, is out of play now. They're not using it, allegedly.
Oh, God. I hope they don't bring that thing back.
But that's the only, he's got the Enterprise, but now all of a sudden he needs Discovery. So there's some questions there, but overall, I liked the trailer. I liked the look of it. I liked the tone of it. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'd agree. It had an overall more fun vibe to it in some of the interactions that you saw with characters. It seems like maybe some of the extra bridge crew, like this, I don't know their names still. So maybe that will change. Cyborg chick and other chick co-helming the ship through an asteroid field where they're maybe going to fight Minox and get attacked by TIE bombers. I don't know. But you know, they had like a fun little bit of play. I mean, they really hit it over the head. Where Pike is the one, I believe, who says like, "Hey, let's try to have some fun on the way to this adventure." I'm with Blake. I have serious concerns that they're forcing Pike into the story because they felt like they needed to, because maybe something else in the season isn't as strong as it should be. Or because they were out of ideas. They didn't want to be creative and come up with a new character. But I'm overall, I think it has that more fun, more adventure vibe, and I think that's going to be really cool. I mean, it's one of the things the other Star Trek series we haven't talked about, or that we talk about all the time, is the Orville, and it's one of the things that I really enjoy about the Orville is it's a little bit more lighthearted and fun and action adventure-y. So,
and we did get season 2 trailer for that one too.
Yes, we did,
which was a fun trailer as well. But let's be fair, though. I mean, every one of us at one time during our reviews of all the episodes from last season said this show needs more Star Trek in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, TIE fighters are not Star Trek, but obviously Captain Pike and the Enterprise is, and every one of us had a joygasm when the Enterprise showed up on screen at the last few minutes of that.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I hope that Pike isn't like just crammed in like, here, fanboys, here's Pike. But as you already mentioned, that's probably only the pilot or the first 2 or 3 episodes.
So the other thing that I'm shocked that none of us actually mentioned yet is the mention of Spock about 1,000 times in that trailer. You know, and it is just that fear of, as much as I want to see Discovery mingle with the Star Trek universe, like I want to see the Enterprise, I want to see them run across Captain Pike. It does concern me a little bit to the degree that they're now integrating Pike into the storyline and they're integrating Spock into the storyline, and I'm a little bit apprehensive about the whole like, let's go solve the universal galactic super mystery.
That looks like Mass Effect.
It's a little Mass Effect-y, it's a little Babylon 5e, it's a little lot of different sci-fi.
If the shadows show up, we're out of here.
Correct.
Shared universe.
That's the one I was actually thinking of, was Stargate Universe, which I actually really liked, but I don't want to see Star Trek follow in those footsteps.
They did. It was Voyager. It was terrible.
I think we all, though, knew from season 1, the second they made Burnham be the stepdaughter or the adopted child of Sarek, I think we all knew at some point they were going to have to reconcile Spock into this. It's inevitable. They had to do it. I kind of think Pike is the vehicle to do that. I just hope it either has the potential to be very, very clumsy or not. And
that goes back to your comment you made, Blake, is how does Pike fit into this and why are they shoehorning Pike in? There's only 3 people in the universe that are, well, 2 people. We still haven't been really proven that Burnham is one of them, but there's 2 people in the world that Spock really is connected to in one shape or form, and that's his mother, and Sarek.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess his, adopted sister. Well, his adopted sister and Sarek are on the exact same ship at the exact same time. So I think that's where they're going to say, we just came by to pick up the Discovery because you were on the way to Vulcan. My first officer, our science officer at this point, he's not the first officer, that's Rebecca Romaine, is heading off somewhere to do something, and I need your help. So I think it would make sense, that tie-in. For me, too, a lot of this I kind of dealt with on my trailer reaction. So for those who watched that, sorry, I'm going to say it again. But I agree with both of you that this is much more fun to watch. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a little Star Trek 2090, which if you didn't like that aesthetic with Kurtzman and Orky last time and Abrams, you're not going to like it this time. But I thought Star Trek 2009 was a really good film. Into Darkness sucked, and Beyond is one of my favorites. So I think that aesthetic is okay with me if it's done right, and it looks like they're doing it right, at least in this trailer.
Well, it definitely seems like they did some fanboy service as far as Pike showing up in his TOS style uniform, but then I believe in that trailer, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we then saw him ditch that and go back to like the Discovery blue and gold.
Yeah.
So.
I saw that more as an away team wraparound, kind of like what they had in TOS. So we only got a brief glimpse of it, but I think that's a wraparound, which is what Kirk used to wear too. But for me, go ahead.
The other thing I'll say with Pike is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but in the original pilot, when Pike wasn't he just kind of fed up, frustrated, burned out?
He wanted to go be a slaver.
Yeah, and this is a very different portrayal of Pike. So, this could also add depth to the Pike character and see, again, how do we get that 10-year gap from where we're at to there? And this could help explain some of that backstory about, so there's potential here that this could be a good story.
Yeah. And well, with Pike, this is 2 years after The Cage. So Pike has already been to the planet and done his thing, and we will see Pike again in TOS, obviously, after he's burnt and disfigured and put in a wheelchair. But you're right. The only time we've actually seen Pike, he was dull. He was ready to quit being captain. He didn't want to be there. And that's the reason why he got replaced. The actor was great. The actor was a very big actor in the 60s. But the CBS said, this guy is going to make you want to shoot yourself in the face. He's so freaking boring. Get somebody else. And we got Shatner. So already Pike is smiling in this. So that's different than what we got in the original series. But also, and his line is the line that I think was directed straight at us. And and I'm happy they put it in there, even though it's very meta, is he looks basically at the camera and says, let's try to have a little fun while we do this. That's what we've been asking for, is fun.
Yeah. I think the other part of this, though, as far as it could flesh out Pike's character and kind of how he potentially gets to where we see him in the beginning of TOS, is it could also be super disastrous for Spock, because as far as what we've seen so far, he's gone missing because he ran across a math problem he couldn't answer.
I said not a character.
No, it's absolutely not. I said this. My trailer reaction is that was the motion picture. He felt V'ger. He's always had this connection. Now, if you didn't like that in the motion picture, well, then you're not going to like it now. But he had that, not metaphysical, but very telepathic ability to sense things. So if there's something going on in the entire galaxy, which that galaxy map showed little pinpoints, then that makes sense. The other one it made me think of was a TNG episode, The Chase. And the whole idea of The Chase was finding artifacts around the galaxy. And it was TNG's way of explaining why everyone looks human. It's because every race was seeded by a master race earlier on. So this is not unheard of. And if it's something that makes it like an overarching story that's not the Klingons, I'll be okay with it. My biggest concern is my concern I've always had with this is Spock and Sarek are not supposed to be friends here. They do not get back together as father and son until the movies. They have a little bit of a coming together in Amok Time during the Babel. But even with that, it's just kind of like, okay, well, we respect each other. Let's move on. So the Spock-Sarek dynamic here is the potential that's going to rub me the wrong way if they don't do it right.
Well, and I guess it's I don't raise the concern so much as being a character thing with Spock, although my issue is more so that just like this being a prequel in the first place, it's every time that they're interacting with classic things that we know and love, they could either add to them or they could tear them down inadvertently. So I'm always just nervous about how this is going to, it seems like this whole story is going to very much, at least in some way, center on Spock. And so I'm hoping that they do justice to that by the end of the season.
Agree.
Along those same lines, I'm actually very much wondering how involved in the season Sarek is going to be, because he was on the Discovery at the end of the episode and so presumably he's there when Pike shows up and takes command. So it's possible that Sarek could hop on the Enterprise and disappear for the rest of the season, or he might be a main character.
Well, and they were taking him to Vulcan to drop him off at the end of the season 1. So, I mean, and of course, all of this was written without season 2 even being planned because it was a new writer's room. So who knows? But it'll be interesting. I think all of us would agree, though, it looks better than what season 1 did for most of it. Just that opening trailer. I think they've learned their lesson. They may have hired some writers who were abusive to other writers, and so they had to fire them. But
details.
It's kind of a tradition with Discovery. You have to fire your writing room halfway through the series every season.
So does the writing room wear red shirts? Is what I want to know. Congratulations! Welcome to the Discovery writing team. Here's your red shirt. Sit over there.
Since it is Discovery, wouldn't it be black shirts? Those guys tend to die a lot.
Either way.
Yeah, it's Cynthia in the chat room says she's ready for season 2. I agree. I think she also pointed out that progenitor race that I mentioned in the chase looked an awful like the Founders, which is fun to think about too.
They did.
So let's go ahead and put a peg on that one. Discovery comes out in 2019, so we've got some time to wait on that, and we won't wait until 2019 to do this again because I love talking Star Trek, and we really need to get into other types of discussions on that. But let's talk about the big news of the day, and that is, as I already mentioned, at Las Vegas Star Trek Convention, Patrick Stewart himself came out on stage and said Jean-Luc Picard is back. Along with that, he gave some very minor details, so I'll throw those out first. One, this is set 20 years after Nemesis, which means we are looking at a couple different things here. Nemesis was 2379, so this series is roughly around 2399, the turn of the century from the 24th to the 25th century. Along with that, that would make Jean-Luc Picard 94 years old when this series takes place. But remember, McCoy in Encounter at Farpoint was 137. So, and Picard, Patrick Stewart is 78 currently, and he pointed out no scripts have been written yet. He has signed the deal. They are moving forward, but no scripts have been written yet. So we're not going to see this thing until 2020 if we're lucky. So he's going to be 80 years old when he...
And he still looks like he did at the start of this.
My God, that man, he must have killed some children and sold his soul to Satan because he doesn't change.
Him and Tom Cruise, man.
I still love the internet meme that shows him and Lindsay Lohan. One says cocaine, the other says Earl Grey.
So let's go ahead and kind of give our first impressions on what we feel about this. Blake, we'll go with you first.
So, obviously, as you said, they didn't give away much. But I think if anyone who watched the announcement, pretty sure my reaction was the same as everyone in the room in Las Vegas. As soon as he said Jean-Luc Picard is back, I was pulling the fanboy cheering section because, Next Generation is the Star Trek I grew up on. That is the one that was on the air. That was my introduction to Star Trek. It was Picard there, make it so with the terrible uniforms and trying to figure out why a Frenchman had a British accent, but
don't forget the Picard maneuver. He had to pull down his shirt.
Picard maneuver, how to tug your shirt down. So I'm looking forward to this, and I think they have some interesting ways to go. I know we were all making some jokes earlier, and my contribution to that was going to be it'll just be Picard playing the flute, that flute thing he has.
I said he was going to be the crotchety guy working in the vineyard, bitching at his ex.
Oh, I'm going to one up both of you and say we're about to watch the adventures of young Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
With him being the old guy.
Patrick Stewart's going to be the one-eyed dude sitting on his vineyard recanting stories about how he banged some Nausicaan chick and got stabbed in the heart for it later.
I'm in.
Just have Q show up every now and then and go, God, what the hell?
Jean-Luc, this is your life.
Yeah. So
it's actually just like The Odd Couple, but it's Picard and Q.
Oh
yeah, The Odd Couple with Picard and Q. But as I said, the bits he added at the end, it's 20 years past. This is a different Picard. He may not be a captain, which I think is a reasonable expectation. And this is a guy that's going to be changed by 20 years of experiences between, he was shaken up at the end of Nemesis. Let's ignore the deleted scene where, he sits down on the bridge, smiles when the seatbelt clicks on, which was stupid.
The deleted scene's the only thing good about that movie.
That is true. But, let's ignore that part and go with, the end of that movie, you've got Data's dead. He's shaken at the end of that. Go 20 years from that.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big question here is with Picard and Patrick Stewart, you assume this is Prime Universe. I'm just going to assume that. And this is the first time Kurtzman... Well, no, it's not. Discovery is Prime Universe, kind of. But this is Kurtzman's first real attempt at doing 24th century Trek. So a couple things have happened between Nemesis and this series, if we assume it's in the Prime timeline. One, As you mentioned, Data is dead. However, supposedly Star Trek Online is canon. And if Star Trek Online is canon, and actually it was in the Star Trek 2009 comic book that Orky wrote, so it's canon anyway, I would assume by that, is Data is back, obviously, as B9, and he is the captain of the Enterprise when Romulus is destroyed, and that's even 10 years before this series takes place. So we've had that happen. If you go off all good things a little bit, then Picard was probably an ambassador sometime, if he's still not an ambassador.
Data was captain of the Enterprise, not Riker?
No, Riker went off to do Titan. He left the Enterprise and Nemesis, which everyone's been saying before this announced that another idea, because they said they were dealing with 5 different shows, and because Jonathan Frakes is really involved in Discovery, he's directing another episode this season, that we could see a Titan series with Captain Riker. But obviously, this may wrap into that too. Who knows? Maybe it's still the Titan series and Picard's in it. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, so it depends on how they want to handle canon. But if they're going to be following it all, then he's not the captain of the Enterprise. We don't even know if the Enterprise is still around at that point. But it is my favorite Enterprise.
Well, there is the Enterprise J.
Oh, that thing is god awful.
Yeah. So here's the question.
Go ahead, Blake.
Here's the question out of this, though, is, everything was hinted at and leading up to, do they get Crusher back into this? Are there going to be other characters that come in? And I think Crusher would be the most logical of the next-gen characters to show up immediately. I'm not saying others won't, but I think Crusher's going to be the one they're either going to have to address pretty head-on if she's going to be there or not.
Yeah, and well, this is 2 reasons why I think Patrick Stewart makes me very excited about this show. Whatever the show is, I'm excited for 2 reasons. One, in his announcement, he said that he got the call about this earlier on the year. So he has been working with them on this for almost a half year now, if not more, and they don't even have scripts yet. So that means he is a producer, which was obvious anyway. But that means he's going to have a say. So it's not just going to be the Kurtzman show. Patrick Stewart's going to say, this is how we used to do things, and it worked, so sit down and shut up. But also, we have heard from the original cast, the original TNG cast, over and over again, that Picard was the father figure. Patrick Stewart was a father figure. He kind of ran the show. He was the one who kept everyone together. So now that he's signed on, I have no doubt that the original cast are going to want to join in on this. Thank you, Blake, in the chat room. Wesley can show up and save the day every episode.
I also like Cynthia's earlier on, though. She's got one up there when we were going about what he'll be doing. He'll replace Boothby at the Academy.
In Star Trek Online, Boothby is a hologram. I just got into Star Trek Online a few weeks ago because they released a Deep Space Nine add-on, so I had to play that.
Okay.
And now I'm done with it because it's really grindy. So, but it was fun to work around Deep Space Nine for a while.
Should have told me. I'd come digitally hung out with you.
Yes, we can hang out in Quarks. It'll be great. Nog's in charge. It's fun.
All right, we'll still do that.
Nog, yeah, but free to play, and you get what you pay for. So let's talk a little bit. What do we think this series is going to be? Let's speculate, and it's a lot of speculation because we have no information aside from it's 20 years. And again, Patrick Stewart himself said Picard may, and he stressed the may because he even said we do not have scripts yet. The story may change, but Picard may not be the Picard you remember, which no one is the same person they were 20 years ago. So that makes perfect sense. I'm okay with that. But where do you guys see this series going? Mike, what do you think?
I'm kind of with you. I don't think it's plausible that he's still the captain of the Enterprise. I think he'll be retired or, an admiral or an ambassador or something. I kind of have this suspicion that it will be some sort of, Picard has to come back from retirement and save the Federation. Like some things have lost their way in the time following the Dominion War, or that's kind of the only speculation I have about it, to be honest. I'm personally very excited and hopeful about getting to see new Star Trek continuity. meaning not a prequel, not something taking place during a known time frame. And I, as much as I joked about it, I just sincerely hope that this isn't going to be some kind of flashback show. I wouldn't really put it past anybody at this point, but
I'm just very happy they didn't mention animated any time during that little announcement, because the word it has been that one of the 5 shows that are in production right now, and by production I mean working on doing what they're doing, so I guess in development, is an animated show. And there was some assumption, because there's been dropping of hints that Patrick Stewart was coming back for a while. There was one assumption that it was going to be an animated TNG show. It doesn't sound like that's going to be the case, because he didn't mention that at all, and neither did Kurtzman.
I don't think an animated series would be that bad of a thing. I mean, honestly, I thought Star Trek animated back in the day was not terrible, and kids could use some decent cartoons nowadays to watch. A good Star Trek series that is geared for children would be fantastic. But we're off topic.
What else is new? Blake, what do you think?
So I think I have more what I hope it's not, and that's, let's go look at All Good Things for a minute. And it was that whole future timeline was, let's get the crew back together for one last voyage because he's Jean-Luc Picard and that's what he wants to do. I hope it's not that. I hope it's not that we have the old aged Picard that wants to go on the one last hurrah and let's get the band back together and do that. Because I think that's going to become the nostalgic clip show that you don't want to see, Mike.
Correct.
So I'm 100% with you there. I don't want to see that. What I'm thinking we're going to see is we're going to see a older Picard, probably someone who is obviously retired from the captain's chair, who's probably gone the ambassador route. I would guess probably helping with the ambassadorial situation with Romulus, and who has faced loss in there. I think either Crusher is there or Crusher died somehow and he's dealing with that.
I hope I could see that too. That. So my thought on this is I think the ambassador piece is almost a given. And part of it, if not Romulus, I could see the Klingons, because in TNG, Picard was really the only human the Klingons ever respected. Gowron ascended because of Picard. And they still owe him one for the whole Duras thing. And after Deep Space Nine, the Klingons under Martok are, back as allies, but there was a little bit of a Federation-Klingon war for a few years. So there needs to be some mending there. So I could see him going off and doing that. But my thought on this is kind of what Mike was saying, and this goes back to when I think it was Bryan Singer's idea. There's been a whole bunch of different ideas for Star Trek bandied about in the past 20 years since Nemesis aired. And that is, Singer's idea was to move forward about 100 years or more and have the Federation being weaker than what it was. It's no longer the empire superpower that it was, and is kind of in its last days as a civilization going through the galaxy, and dealing with kind of trying to rebuild that as a series. So I could see this as pulling Picard out of mothballs and him not wanting to be pulled out of mothballs to deal with some kind of large crisis.
Yeah, I kind of think too, and you have to think Star Trek is a social commentary show, right? And so obviously we live in a certain day and age right now where there's a lot of stuff going on that people feel ways about, and it would be very topical for this series to take place in an era where, the Federation is in decline, has lost its way a little bit. And you've got Picard, who is kind of the shining beacon example of the Federation, who now may be in an ambassadorial role, who, is more of a politician than a soldier. I meant to say warrior, and I said soldier, and then I said it all weird. Who's more of a politician at this point, and is maybe in a position where he, is tested in a different way and has to step forward out of the shadows to resolve a coming conflict or something along those lines. Yeah,
and along those same lines, I think that makes sense, because then it allows you to do quite a bit of other things. Because Javier asked this in the chat room, and that was, with all the action scenes in the new series nowadays, how do you think that the new series with Picard will attract new audiences? I don't think Picard is there to attract new audiences. I think he's there to attract us, the action around him will be what's there to attract new folks. And I think that's the way you kind of get the old gang back together, because is it going to be TNG Phase 2? No, but Jonathan Frakes wants to do a show. Michael Dorn pitched a Worf show 5 years ago, and it got shut down. These guys, most of them aren't working a lot. They want to come back. So, without a doubt, I see the end of Season 1 being the TNG crew on the same ship.
And loved or hate it, and we've all discussed multiple aspects of CBS All Access here, but I think it's becoming clear out of this and these announcements, CBS is looking to make Star Trek a cornerstone of their online service. You know, they weren't interested in a one-and-done series to get subscribers. I think they're showing they're serious about making Star Trek part of the cornerstone of this.
Well, and that basically puts everyone to bed, and it wasn't us. I don't think any of us ever made this comment, but a lot of people online and a lot of other podcasts and shows that I follow have said that Discovery was a disappointment to CBS and that it didn't get the numbers that they thought it was going to get. That obviously is not true.
No.
Because they would not sign Kurtzman to a 5-series deal. And of course, those things always happen. Not all 5 shows are going to get made. He develops them and they decide where they want to go with it. But they signed the dude to a 5-series deal. You don't do that with a show that disappoints.
No, I thought I had heard that Discovery was like the #1 most watched streaming series ever.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, and I still stand behind it. Got better as the series rolled on. I had this argument with Craig, my brother, on the chat room a little bit ago. He said, well, I watched Discovery. I saw the first half of the season. I'm like, no, then you didn't watch Discovery because it was a different show once they went to the Mirror Universe. Flat out, it was a different show.
Yeah.
It still has a lot of room to grow, and we've already discussed that, but it got better. And Cynthia says that she wants Worf to be in the new Klingon makeup, and I told her to shut up.
Cynthia, allow me to echo Scott. Shush. Don't give them ideas.
And that's the one thing that concerns me, is Kurtzman. And Mike, you mentioned Star Trek has always been an allegory to what's going on. And I think it's done that well, and sometimes Deep Space Nine, I felt, did it really well, and it was actually a little bit before its time on that. I think TNG kind of lost its way on that and kind of got boring as it went along, but that's a whole nother story. But Kurtzman's one time that he really tried to make a comment was Into Darkness, and it was a comment on militarization and everything else, and it fell so freaking flat. I hope Patrick Stewart, as a producer on this and getting some other writers in on this, will keep Kurtzman at bay. But I do have a concern about that. Although I could see, and this goes back to what you guys had said already, is we have a different Federation here. In the course of 30 years, the Borg have attacked. The Dominion has almost laid waste to the Federation. The Romulans are no longer a superpower, and we have other accidents. We had a Klingon war with the Federation too. So the Federation was moving to more militaristic policies in the shows. That's why we had the Defiant.
Oh yeah, I mean all the ships. The Sovereign class is a warship, not a science ship.
But it's so pretty. It's so pretty.
Hate to cut in real fast. I've actually got to jump off. I've got another call here in a few minutes I got to do. So.
Well, aren't you special?
No. The joys of having multiple things.
Sure. We see where we stand.
Yeah, well.
Well, that's Blake. Bye, Blake.
Have a good night.
See ya.
We're gonna be wrapping up anyway. So.
All right.
Yeah. I was just gonna add to your point. I would not be the least bit surprised. In fact, I'm anticipating that this show will have something to do with a war. I think Star Trek has, always kind of hit a certain stride when it deals with the topic of war. I think it's going to fit right in line with our theory that Picard's going to be an ambassador of some kind, with, as you said, the militarization of Starfleet. And it's going to, I think, come to a head of is Starfleet willing to do what they have to do to survive, to kind of do what Discovery has already hinted at and walk away from their morals a little bit? Or are they already going that way and it's going to be Picard's mission to pull them back?
Yeah, and I hope not on the whole leaving your morals thing, because they tried that.
We've seen it.
We saw it with Discovery. We saw it with Enterprise, season 3 of Enterprise, which I think we've seen that story. But if we come in after that has happened and deal with a birth of something new that is more of the Roddenberry ideal, then yeah, I can see that happening. I don't want to see the decline again. I've seen that.
Yeah, and that's always my fear nowadays, and I'm sure it was no different back then, but I just notice it now it's lazy writing. I don't want to see too many familiar characters because they're too lazy to make new ones, and I don't want to see the same story retold with different players because I've seen it already. To that note, I really hope this doesn't have something to do with the Borg, and that's why Picard is the logical choice for a main character because of his dealings with them.
The Borg are going to show up sooner or later, even if it's
eventually. They fit them into Enterprise.
Oh, okay. That episode wasn't bad.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't bad. It was season 2. You get what you get.
My point still stands that they found a way to shove them in there because the Borg are one of the more interesting villains in Star Trek.
Well, and it's. I still say Voyager destroyed the Borg anyway. They're not the same. So
that's going to be interesting too. Is if this series actually does take place 20 years after Nemesis, it will be interesting to see how many references to other Star Trek canon we get to see. We saw some things in Discovery that were nods to TOS and some nods to Enterprise. This time we've got DS9 and Voyager to throw into the mix too.
And Cynthia says, "Is it wrong that I want season 5 of Enterprise?" No, I think I would love that. Season 4 of Enterprise is still one of my favorite seasons of any Star Trek show, because they did what Mike just said to do the right way. Is there was incorporation of stuff from TOS, but it wasn't, hey, let's shoehorn in a character. It was, okay, let's talk about augments, but let's talk about a different batch of augments. Let's talk about Klingons, but let's not do it this way, and so forth and so on. So season 4 was great. Now, she also mentioned Admiral Janeway, and Admiral Janeway is probably why the Federation's falling apart. So having Admiral Janeway anywhere in this show is a bad thing. No offense to Kate Mulgrew, but her character sucked. Terribly. But no, I think, where was I? No, this is the thing that excites me the most. I'm glad you hit on it. Is I'm a Deep Space Nine guy. As Blake said, TNG was his show. I grew up watching TNG, but I was too young to really get into it until the latter seasons. Deep Space Nine came out season 4 of TNG, and that was my show. I started with Emissary, and I worked my way all the way through season 7 and cried at the end. And it still is my favorite show. I want to see Deep Space Nine at least mentioned in this. I want to see some of those folks back, and I know it's going against what you just said, but I need to see Odo.
Hey, cameos galore. I have no problem with cameos.
Yeah, have an episode where they dock at Deep Space Nine. That's it.
What I don't want to see is that the whole show is about Captain Picard and his group of young lieutenants who are the son of Ben Sisko and the son of Kira and the second cousin of Sulu, and you know what I mean.
Although, you just said son of Sisko, Cyril Lofton as Jake Sisko. You take my money. Take my money. I love that kid, and he hasn't done much since Deep Space Nine.
See Admiral Nog.
20 years. That'd be fun. But no, I mean, so that's why I'm happy we're going back to the 24th, almost 25th century. Is there is so much universe building already done. They can do so much.
Yeah, I want this to be new, and I want this to be the next thing. I really desperately don't want this to be a Young Adventures of Captain Picard. And I'm honestly worried that is a possibility.
I don't know. They've done prequels 3 times now. If you count Enterprise, you have Enterprise, you have the new shows, the new movies, and now Discovery. And yes, the new movies are not connected because CBS and Viacom are 2 different companies. But Obviously, Kurtzman had his hands in 2 out of those 3. I think he's prequeled out, and that's why we're seeing this.
I hope so.
I have faith that this is CBS finally realizing what we all knew. Star Trek is the golden egg. If you treat it well, if you beat it into submission, Rick Berman, it dies. But if you do it well, it can be something that maybe not be on network television anymore. I hate paying to see it, but that may be where it goes. And if we get hundreds of hours of Star Trek we weren't going to get because of this, and it's good, I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
What else you got? Anything?
I think that's about it.
Okay. We can make fun of Blake for a bit. Well, okay, we'll go ahead and wrap things up. But the last thing I want to do is I think I'm going to drop this probably tonight, so this works. If it drops after Tuesday, get a time machine and work on it. But we have some really big thing coming up for the Front Row Network here Tuesday night if you live anywhere in Central Illinois. And that is we are doing the first of our Front Row Flicks. We have talked about movies for over 3 years now, and now it's time to actually show some movies. So you can find out on our website, which is thefrontrowmoviereviews.com. You can find us on Facebook, the Front Row Movie Reviews, or Front Row Network on Facebook, or on Twitter, Front Row Reviews. You can find the link at any of those. But on Tuesday, August 7th at 6:30, we are going to be at the Hoogland Center for the Arts in Springfield, Illinois, where we're going to be showing The Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is the second best Indiana Jones film of all time. And I stand behind that.
Temple of Doom, man. I feel you.
Oh, no. Last Crusade, sir.
It's obviously the best one, Temple being second.
One of these days I'll get you on Flashback and we can actually talk about stuff like that.
No.
Punk.
No,
but
I won't be there Tuesday either. Because I have a stupid-ass job.
But it's at 6:30 Central Time. We will be doing some fun trivia. I have been kind of put in charge of making the trivia, so some of it will be excruciatingly hard. Sorry. But then we will watch the movie, and then we will record a short podcast after the film where there will be a lot of Q&A from the audience. And ticket sales have actually been pretty impressive. I'm kind of scared by this because we have to do well. But we're looking forward to it. So if you are anywhere near Central Illinois on Tuesday, please come out and check out Raiders of the Lost Ark with us, because if you do, it means I get to do more of these, and I want to do more of these because I want to see Last Starfighter on the big screen.
Hey, Transformers the Animated Movie's coming out to theaters on the 27th of September.
I will be there, and so will you.
I think it's the 27th. I might have to be there next to you because apparently my theater's not showing it.
I have an AMC IMAX. They better show it.
Yeah, I'm kind of heartbroken at the moment about this.
Dude, we will find a way.
All right.
Life finds a way to go to Transformers. Okay. If you want to find us, go to frontrowmoviereviews.com. You can also email us at thefrontrowmoviereviews@gmail.com. And finally, if you are watching us on YouTube, please make sure to hit like and subscribe and click that notify bell icon. We do these shows live, and as you saw, we had some folks in the chat room and joining in. So if you want to be involved in that, hit that notify button and you'll be told immediately when we go live for all of our shows. And then if you're listening to the podcast version, please make sure to subscribe and also give us a review on your podcast app of choice. That really does help us get the word out. And we will definitely be back with more Discovering Star Trek before 2019. When we have a moment to breathe, we'll figure some stuff out and get some shows going. So until then, I am Scott, and with me has been Blake, who decided he had more important things to do, and Mike. And Mike, who has nothing important to do. Until next time, live long and prosper, and the Sovereign class is the best class ever. The end.
I hope I see a Prometheus in the new series.
Yes, Mike, you like the Prometheus for that 5 seconds you saw it on screen.
That's right. As long as Andy Dick's not there.
He'll be captaining the ship now. He got promoted.
Admiral Dick.
Is that Admiral Janeway? Okay. Bye.
Hit the close button.
You can send your hate mail to the frontrowmoviereviews@gmail.com. Bye.